Right. Jim, thanks for being here on the Tracer Franchising Podcast. I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, so do I, Josh. Thank you for inviting me.
Perfect. All right. So, Jim, you're a franchisee with, is it ERA Group, ERA Group? What do you guys say?
We say ERA Group. It just recently rebranded, so it used to be well, I won't even say what it used to be, expense reduction analyst. But now it is ERA Group, not ERA, ERA Group, and we're trying to train everybody to say it that way. So yes.
Okay. So, you're a new franchisee. So let's just start with about you. What were you doing before, right? What was your kind of journey to where you are now? And then we'll get into the franchise.
Um, yeah, so out of the academy, went into the Navy and did years in corporate manufacturing and left that to go into real estate in 2018 and started my own real estate business. When the markets took a turn, my wife kind of took off with that business, and I said, I want to try something else. I want to get back into things. And I knew I didn't want to go back into more of a corporate mode. I wanted to do something that I had a bit more control over. So started looking around for businesses, had a few ideas on ones to start up, and the idea of a franchise, already established business, methods in place, procedures. Basically, you just come in and you optimize it and run it. And so I started exploring that.
Very cool. Very cool. So you've run your own business before, right? It sounds like it was doing well. Your wife took off with that. Um, and then you wanted something that was in place. Um, were you like aware of franchising, or was it something that you found on the internet and you're like, oh, actually, this is a good idea? Have you been thinking about it for a long time? Where did that idea come from?
No, I hadn't been thinking about it that long. Looking around for businesses, I'd explored it before, and there are so many different franchises. When I'd explored it back in 2020, I kind of got lost in the myriad of options out there. I mean, you can spend $10 million and buy a franchise, or you can spend, $10,000. And what, so I just kind of got lost in it. But somebody reached out to me last year and approached me. They work very similar to what you do, helping people find franchises that might be a fit for them. And that I went through the process then of really defining what did I want out of a franchise. What was my vision? Actually, it didn't even start with the franchise. It was what was my vision for what I wanted my life to be like with whatever business I went into. And the person I was working with actually helped me through some of that process, asked some really good probing questions, and we developed a vision statement of what, for me, what did I want out of this? I asked him along the way, what is typical for him to do this? And he explained to me that 1 in 10 of the people that he works with don't end up buying a franchise from him. They end up going a different route. So I thought that was pretty good because I wasn't really sold that that's what I wanted to do. But by having working with a franchise expert, I was really able to narrow it down exactly based on what I had to spend, what I was looking to get out of the business, what I wanted to put into it. We really narrowed it down pretty quickly to a few that I could take a look at and then start the process of really meeting with people in the franchise to see if it was a fit for me and a fit for them.
Yeah, very cool. So, can you talk about what were those parameters, right? So, like, give people an idea. Like, what exactly were you looking for? What was your goals?
I wanted to. I just moved to upstate Georgia, northern Georgia, in the mountains. So I wanted something that I could either do remote or establish here in the area I was at, and not have to do a lot of travel. So I've been doing a lot of travel before for my job. So I also wanted a service business. I wanted to be able to help people in whatever I did, and so we looked at a broad range of different franchises for that. One was a painting service, which was really good. And starting that, talked to a few franchise owners who had just knocked it out of the park with that. But I wanted to establish a steady income that would offset the real estate income that my wife had, and just kind of build a bit the depth of what we had. So after we lined that out and how much time, I also realized in the process, I didn't necessarily want to establish something from the ground up. That wasn't a desire because I wanted 5 to 6 years working in it and then possibly looking at either selling it or just retiring out of it. Um, so with that in mind, also the what I wanted to spend and put into it. And I kind of set a limit. I didn't want to go to the bank and finance for a $10 million business. I was comfortable between 100 to $200,000. But that also included money to live on while I was getting the business up and running. So the business had to be something that was able to deliver cash fairly quickly. Was one of the concerns I had because none of us have unlimited funds. So
Yeah.
uh, now the good thing is I was also connected. There are financing options and different things that are out there, SBA loans, different aspects. So you, I wasn't alone in that part of the journey. There were other people I could talk to see how to learn for that.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So, you went with ERA Group, right? So let's first talk about what is ERA Group, right? And then how it aligns with those goals that you just laid out.
Okay. So ERA Group, I became a consulting partner by joining them. It's a global cost intelligence company, over 850 people worldwide. Within the U.S., I'll get this wrong, but about 215 of us working in the U.S. And it's kind of split between people who go out and connect with the clients and then also service delivery experts. So in my past, I did a lot of cost analysis, different aspects. I know how to find the money that's missing for clients. So I had the option of doing either. Just starting out, they want everybody to start with acquiring clients. And so that's the stage I'm in now to establish a few client bases. But why would you go with us or why would a client go with us? We go into the client and they're experts at what they do typically. So 80% of their spend they've got covered. It's that 20% that they don't want to mess with or don't have the expertise or the time to mess with. So for a manufacturing company, it might be the logistics and freight, the waste management, energy, fleet management, things that are not core to their business. I mean, their raw materials they've got dialed in, their facilities, their manufacturing equipment, um, office supplies, cleaning the spaces, grounds maintenance, painting the buildings, those type of upkeep things that cost a business quite a bit. And so we call that the tail spend or the 20%. And that's where we come in. We bring in experts in those fields who can then apply the knowledge and work with them. Now, the other reason I went with ERA Group was it really is more service oriented. I only get paid if I save you money as a client. And I don't get paid, so it's contingent savings, and I don't get paid till actually the way I structured it, till you actually have saved money in the bank. So if we work together, once you have that extra money sitting in the bank you didn't spend, so it was in your budget, you didn't need to spend it because we saved it, then that's what I get paid out of. We work out an agreement on that.
Cool. So just to kind of sum it up here, let's say I'm the business owner for a big manufacturing company. I'm probably really good at running the line. I'm negotiate with the raw material partners. I've got my people I'm selling it to or the distributors, and so that's what I'm really good at. But there's all these ancillary things that I have to do to run the business. Like I've got to keep the lights on. I've got to keep it clean. I've got to keep the parking lot in working order. And I don't really care about those things because they don't make me money, right? So there's just things that I probably just fell on it. I called a couple people. I went with the first person. I've never questioned it over the last 20 years I've owned this business. But you, an ERA Group, it sounds like you have people who are going out and talking to the business owners and saying, "Hey, all the stuff you're paying on, you're probably paying too much. So I'll take a look at it for you for free if you just give me a couple documents." And then I've got guys within the group that'll go through and figure out where we can save you money. And then let's say we can save you 10 grand a month. You got to keep X percent, and then I get the rest of it. So maybe it's like whatever 50-50, like whatever it is, right?
Right.
So everybody wins. And then you're not paying me until, instead of $10,000 going out the door, you got 5 going out the door, or whatever. Instead of 100 going out the door, you got 90 going out the door, right? And so I get a piece of that. That's cool, right? So it's like a no risk proposition for the business owner. Okay, so the business is, you're either someone out going out, tip of the spear, speaking to business owners to save them money, or you're one of the experts doing the analysis once the owner says, yeah, you can do this. Um, I imagine you're getting paid as the person who sells it for, as whatever, maybe that 3-year contract, right? So that's like recurring income that's coming in once it's sold.
Mhm.
So why would you switch to being one of the experts, right? If I'm going out, I'm closing these guys, I'm getting paid for 3 years off something I sold once. Why would I be an expert at going through the books?
Um, it just depends. It depends on people's personality. I've met people who really prefer the expert work. One gentleman I just met came out of a telecom company, Verizon. He'd been there for years, but he was in their procurement side. And that's really what he loves. He doesn't like going and meeting new people, um, trying to sell things.
Mm,
And that was, for me, one of the biggest things coming in. I don't have a marketing and sales background. I'm operations. I'm tip of the spear. I'm out there making it happen and getting things done. And so I didn't think I'd be interested in that. But in reality, I know what I wanted when I was out there then. So it's really set me up well to connect to people, clients, and know what their pain points are. What's causing them trouble. Insurance is a big thing that most people wouldn't think it is, but every company, every professional outfit needs some type of insurance. And a lot of times it's like you described, they go out to a friend, they call 1 or 2 insurance companies, they get a quote when they founded the business, and then they never look at it again. It's just the rates go up and they just keep paying it. Well, everybody needs insurance. But you can, and we found our insurance experts have found some big issues. I mean, one company had miscoded themselves in the sick code when they started. And so they'd been paying at a higher rate for 30 years of business. And by
wow.
changing that code, they were able to save almost $1 million a year that they've been paying for 30 years. So, I mean,
Holy
that's
cow.
where the expert analysis really does pay off.
Yeah.
Um, and those mistakes happen. It's rare
Yeah.
that we uncover something that big, but um, definitely there's
Yeah.
opportunities in every company we've looked at for different categories.
Wow. So does the expert also get recurring revenue? Like they get a piece of that for the next
They
3
do.
years as well?
They
Okay.
do.
So
So
there's yeah.
there is. So with the client, whatever the agreement is, typically 50% of the savings that we actually achieve. And then ERA Group then splits that. So if I'm the one who acquired you as a client, typically it's a 50-50 split within ERA. And that the owner, the founder of ERA Group, he played with different things in the beginning when he founded the company 35 years ago and really found that it's better just going 50-50. Don't mess with it because the experts, they earn their keep. They do a lot of work and the client acquisition, and they can tell you because they don't like to do it. That's the same thing. I mean, it's so everybody kind of just gets that and has to put the same effort in because we're all on the same team. And even with the client, we're on the same team because we want the client to succeed.
Yeah.
They've got to
And
make
they
money.
get the client gets those savings indefinitely, but they're only paying you guys for 3 years. Is that right?
Yep. So
Yeah,
typically
it's a
we'll
good.
do a 5-year analysis for the client, based on the savings, based on getting them established. Let's say it's 500,000 a year. Okay, they only get 250 the first 3 years, but the next 2 years they get the full 500,000. And if their volumes go up or other things change, they save even more. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good deal, actually. Um, so it sounds like really there's probably 2 issues just from like a sales and marketing perspective. One is like getting your name out there, right?
yes,
Just people probably never heard of you. And then the second one is believing you. You know? Because
yes,
there's all sorts of things. It's like you're gonna go find me $1 million. Like, how could you know my business better than me? You're gonna find me $1 million that I can't figure out. Like, yeah, right. Um, so are those like I don't know? You've been doing sales now for what 4 months?
4 months.
Yeah, yeah. So like, is that how's it going? Like, what are the issues that you're encountering?
Exactly what you're saying. One is getting to the right decision maker, because
Mhm.
the proposition, once you explain it, makes sense. But you've got to get into the CFO or the CEO and talk to them, or the business owner. And typically, they tell me owners are easier because they just want to make profit. They're like, you're going to
Mhm.
do a free analysis and show me. When you go lower in the organization, that's where you tend to get people who are like, hey, I'm an expert at my job. I know it better than you. And they
Yeah.
don't, so it's not in their best interest for you to look in under the hood, so to speak, and find problems.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, in reality, it's stuff that they're not experts in. And
Yeah.
typically they're doing a great job in the stuff that makes them money. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm working with one client now who has grown consistently 10 to 15% every year. And they're
Okay.
always scrambling. They are so hungry that for business, for growth. Um, but are they doing everything efficiently? I mean, we'll find out. We're working with them to see. And that's the best part, the free analysis. If they're doing everything good, great. Here's a report with a certificate. We can give them a certificate that says you're doing an outstanding job. We couldn't find you any savings.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So, but again, but if we do identify something, then they have the opportunity to go after that. And typically, especially the company I just described, if they're scrambling to grow their business and improve it, they don't want to go dig into their logistics and freight and get a new contract, or their cleaning services, which really, as you already said, makes them no money. It's just a drain, it's a cost.
Yeah.
So that's really where we can help a lot of companies out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like just being able to shift the mindset of like you could spend 10 hours, 20 hours doing the exact same thing we're doing, right? Or you could spend 20 hours getting another contract. Like which one's going to make you more money? And it's going to be getting the more contract, right? So just let us do this and spend time where you're going to go and you're going to make money, right? Um yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about like what's it's not like a business, it almost seems like a job, right? Like can you eventually like hire salespeople and they're out selling and you're, you know, hanging out, or like what's the deal with that? Or is it always it has to be you, on the front lines? Or
No, so yeah, that's a great point. So scalability was a big factor for me. Because I mentioned earlier, I may want to sell the business or just let it go away. This is definitely a scalable business. And I talked to some franchisees who have done just that. So some who have outsourced some cold calling and reaching out to customers and clients. The one piece I'd probably keep initially, and probably for a while, is I'd be the face of the business, the one to go in and talk to. Because once you establish a relationship with somebody, you don't want to see somebody new every time coming
yeah.
around talking to you. So that relationship management is key. Um, but it is very scalable. So already they introduced ideas, and the franchise or supports it quite a bit. If you start adding people to your business, there are certain perks you get within the business. You don't get cheaper franchise rates, but they know that you're growing, so they're seeing more royalties and fees coming in. So they're going to support that, allowing you access to maybe other territories, other areas, so that you can continue to grow. They want to support that growth
Hmm.
when they're moving.
Okay.
It's and the royalties, another reason I chose the franchise that I did. Um, a lot of franchises, and as whoever's looking for a franchise needs to pay attention to this, will have fees that you have to pay regardless of if you're making money or not. ERA Group, as a franchisor, they don't charge more, they charge less until you actually get clients and are making money, and then they ramp up. And they realize they don't make money unless you do. One or two of the other franchises I looked at, I did a worst case. I built an Excel model, worst case scenario. If I didn't make any money, or was in an accident, couldn't make money for 6 months, potentially I'd still have to pay them. In one case, it was $60,000 a year in royalties, even if I'm not making any.
Hmm.
And this group doesn't do that. There's a minimum set that you pay, But once you start making money, the royalties go off of that. And even the marketing and other fees that a franchisee pays go up as you're making money. So you don't notice they're trying to help you get your business established and supporting you in that.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Just I'm gonna one note on that though. I'm gonna say for people like because we have not high royalties or minimums, but relatively high minimums, right? Ours ramped up over 6 months, no matter what, right? But also I think it shows that like the franchisor knows that if you follow the system, like you're gonna go get clients, right? And so it's almost like a forcing function. Because I've seen people, buy franchises and then go on vacation. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Um, like they're like, oh, well, I want to get one last vacation in. I was like, do it before you buy the frame. Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? And so I've seen them do those things because they know that like as long as you're doing what we're telling you to do, like you will make money. And so these are so that you can't just sit at home and call yourself a business owner but not do anything, right? So I am gonna defend those guys a little bit, because I think yeah, sometimes people need a little kick in the rear to get going, especially people who've never sold before. They'll come up with every excuse to not go sell, right? Um,
That's
so anyway,
that, but before we leave that, Josh, I think that's a great point because speed to cash. Some of these other businesses, the ones I was saying charge more royalties and other things, also were much quicker to cash to
yeah,
get them up and running. So one of the ERA Group typically they see a longer time till you actually secure clients and get that pipeline built. Most people don't come in with a pipeline of companies ready to go that want to save money. So what you said is absolutely true. These other franchises may charge more, but you're also bringing money in the door much quicker.
yeah, and I think that's the reality of most B2B businesses, where business owners don't just like it's not like a consumer where like if I want a hot dog, I'm just like walk into this place because I got a coupon in the mail or whatever, right? Like that's not how it works. Like you have to build this relationship. You guys have to go do this report, which I don't know how long it takes, but I'm sure it's not overnight. Um, and then you got to schedule the presentation, and then they're gonna have a million questions, and then you have to go and get the bids right to find better vendors, and then they have to approve it. So like you're talking probably a sales process of a few months, and you don't know what you're doing. So the first couple sales calls, you're probably totally gaffing, right? No, that's just
Oh,
kind of how,
well, yeah,
right? It's just how it goes.
it is.
And then so and that's like just if you hear B2B, like a lot of people are like, I want B2B, right? Recurring revenue, contracts. It's like, all right, you're not going to make money for 6 months, and it's not going to be a lot when you do start making money, right? But when you do, you're now going to make that money for 3 years, right? So it's a different mindset. And so it sounds like ERA Group, sorry, um, set their royalty structure to align with the reality of just what's going to happen when you start the business.
And in defense of the other franchises I looked at, I mean, they align theirs correctly as well. Because if you apply yourself to those businesses, you're going to come back and make money.
Yeah.
But you've got to apply, and your vacation example is a perfect one. Because yeah, oh, okay, I'm a franchise owner. I'm going to take 2 weeks off. No way. With any business, I mean, ERA Group or the painting one I mentioned, I mean, you've got to throw yourself into it. You are now the business owner. You can't blame somebody else.
Yeah.
It's your effort and what you get out of it. But that's the other reason to go with a franchise. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, because if you could work really hard in a business that's brand new and not make any money because you don't know what you're doing. So, uh, uh, I actually another question on the employees for you. Let's say you go to the expert side, right? Could I just hire someone who's an expert at this as well and just have them do it and then pay them a salary and I get, whatever is left?
yes. So, and we have several franchisees that do that.
Yeah.
Some in the medical field, some others who have hired expertise, packaging, small freight, logistics, stuff like that. And the franchisee is the head of that group and they run it, but they'll hire experts and just pay them a salary. So
Yeah.
they don't get the upside, but now they have, as any business owner knows, if you're paying a salary, you've got certain obligations. Um, And it depends on the scalability again of the business, because you could go through a spell where you don't have a lot of clients. And if you've got somebody on salary as opposed to a 1099 employee, you've got to pay them regardless.
Yeah.
Um, but the scalability is definitely there. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. And so this, leads me the next question, which kind of
okay.
these two things tie in together, right? So I know you're talking to business owners all over the country, right? There's probably not a ton of manufacturing plants in the mountains of Georgia. Um, uh, and it sounds like you're have a manufacturing background, so you're focusing on manufacturing. So does the franchisor, is there any restrictions, or is it just like go get clients and you should probably talk to the people that are in the industries that you know?
There are no restrictions, other than we have a few areas. We do have a CRM system to manage it. So if you're approaching a client, you're not approaching someone, two or three of us aren't approaching the same client.
Yeah.
So we do have a system that runs in the background so that we know, um, I'm approaching Tracer and I'm the only one approaching them. But other than that, there's not too many restrictions. You do have to apply for something that's out of your area and get approval. Uh, but yeah, not too many. And as far as doing doing strictly manufacturing, I'm also working with nonprofits and schools. And these are schools are under a lot of pressure, especially higher education, to save money. There's a lot of things happening now around the higher education, colleges, universities, and there's still a lot of spend there that they're not necessarily experts at. Their catering costs, the housing, the cleaning, universities, all the expenses that they're not experts in, we can help them with and help them get better. And the model scales for pretty much any business, and work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that's actually smart. It's a good niche, right? That I think because college is probably even less so than businesses, even though they're technically a business. Maybe it's just my bias, right? It's just like a bunch of eggheads sitting around trying to like get kids to classes because that's what they care about, right? And they have all this other stuff going on. Um, so yeah, that makes sense. Um, okay. So let's talk about your day to day, right? So we know generally like what the business is, what you're trying to accomplish, who you're going after, but like, what are you doing? Are you just calling people all day? Like, are you sending emails? Like, what are you doing?
So that was a big question as I went through training, and asking. And again, the franchise or setup, they give you a little guidance, but yeah, it's your own business. So you have to grow it and establish it. Once you have clients, then some of your week is filled in with supporting the clients. And so it kind of shifts over time. Um, what I did when I signed up, I knew I needed to learn ERA Group first, and how we work and who the people are inside, especially our experts who I'd be working with. So after I finished training and started the franchise, I did 80% internal and 20% external in an average week, kind of block scheduled and set it up. So the 20% external was really starting to establish networks, looking for businesses that I had a connection with that I could get into, because there is a big difference between a cold call and a slightly warm. Like if I know you or you know somebody that could use my service and you make that connection, there's a level of trust.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a typical sales cycle of know, like, trust, and then they'll do business. Um, if you're just cold calling somebody, they don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you because they don't know you. I mean,
Yeah.
so you've got to go through those. So initially, I was doing 20% outside, 80% inside. After the second month, I switched it around intentionally and looked back at my week to make sure that 80% of my time was outward facing and networking in all different ways, like this podcast with you. I met you at a networking group. I mean, so that was a great opportunity. The chamber meetings, what local groups need support. Workforce development for me is a big thing coming from manufacturing. A lot of the things that the challenges I faced, and ERA Group doesn't help with this, but I want to see manufacturing come back to the US. So we need a good workforce. So I'm looking around local nonprofits that are helping get GEDs for people, get additional training so that the local workforces can be strengthened. This idea that Americans don't want to work or can't work in a factory. Nope, they just need some of them just need a bit of development and a slight push. So, but that's outward facing. And I'm also meeting businesses with that who are like, oh, well, what do you do? And okay, well, I save businesses money. Possibly I could help you, but let's focus right now on these people who need the education, the leadership skills, so they can go back and supervise people. Um,
Uh-huh.
but that is then so filling. You asked how do I fill my day then? It's basically block scheduling, looking at how to go outside. So that would be a networking event or a support, but get out there, meet people, and that's the biggest thing. And that's the change because when I was manufacturing operations, the whole focus was inside the plant.
Yeah.
Occasionally we've had customers come through, but the people I'm servicing there are the operators in the plant, the engineers, the people who keep the plant running. Now it's completely different. So now I'm servicing the community. I've got to get out there and let people help people in the community because that's what we do. And then if by chance I can connect ERA Group and help them through ERA Group, even better.
Very cool. Okay. So a lot of just kind of like shaking hands, being a good guy, right? And you're going to come across business owners.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a plan.
a lot of networking. Cool.
Networking.
Um, yeah. All right. So, um, let's actually, I do want to step back. I forgot a question about the research, right? So
Right.
you mentioned that spreadsheet. So what were like how did you determine that this was going to make enough, right? It's got to make sense in terms of like what you do today, but it's also going to make dollars and cents, right? So
Yes.
how did you determine that this is something that could get you to where you wanted to be financially?
Uh, Speaking to franchisees who had already done it, so kind of validating the numbers that the franchisor shared, and also based on my experience in the different manufacturing plants I had run, the general way I look at it in the spreadsheet I set up was finding a client. 20% of their spend is not their core spend. So 20% we can go in and make a savings on. Our typical savings, talking to our experts and stuff that they see, is 10%. And that's more to the low end. I always set these spreadsheets up on the lower side because there are always cases where, wow, we went in and saved $1 million on insurance. Well, that's a one-off.
Yeah.
Um, but typically 10% savings on 20% of their overall spend. So it was pretty easy to figure out how many clients I would need in order to establish a good baseline to continue to grow. Uh,
Okay. So that's 2%, right? And then what's the average revenue of the businesses that you're working with?
um, Typically 20 to about 200 million. Because as you go over 500 million or more, they'll hire in experts. It's not that they have enough revenue coming in to hire experts in those fields to look at them every once in a while. But the smaller owner startup, smaller businesses, and smaller 50 million, $100 million, they don't always have time because they're out scrambling to get new clients. They've been growing. So that's really kind of more the sweet spot. But I mean, I see where you're going. So a $50 million business, um, you get 20% of that spend that you can analyze.
Hmm.
And then out of that, you save 10%. That's a pretty good chunk of change for the client that you're saving them. And
Yeah.
then our experts have to do that work to actually, we have to achieve the savings. Um, but that adds up pretty quickly.
So how many clients are people getting on average a year?
Um, some of the top performers are getting 5 or 6.
Yeah.
They say average performers there are a lot of people who enter this franchise area that are more just looking for income in retirement and they want to keep doing things. They want to keep active. But if you're doing 3 to 4 clients a year, you're doing pretty well.
Okay.
Because once you get the client, you have to then put the effort into. maintaining that client, keeping them happy. It's not just 3 years and you coast back because, hey, we've got 3 years guaranteed income. You've got to work with that client every month. You've got to make sure their data is correct. You've got to go through, make sure the savings are being achieved. A lot of time,
Mhm.
vendors will renegotiate a contract and then slowly drift away because no one's watching. Well, we've got to watch that, and we do that for the client. So if, hey, wait a second, this was supposed to be charged at the new negotiated rate. Why wasn't it? Oh, yeah, that's our mistake. It's amazing how many times that happens. Yeah. Oh, it was just a mistake. The old system. But that's real money in the end. So
Yeah. Okay. So there is a follow on aspect to it that
there is.
okay, interesting. All right, so they're getting a couple of clients. How many franchisees did you talk to before you felt comfortable?
Um, in each of the franchises I looked at, it was about 5 or 6. Um, so even the other ones. So I did a lot of interviewing and I also wanted to ask for new, which they typically like to give you the success story, somebody who started 2, 3 years ago and now they're making millions and loving it
Mm,
and getting ready to expand. But in both cases, I narrowed it down. I also wanted to talk to somebody who just started out and what were they experiencing 6 months, 9 months in. And then it's I tried to get somebody who was failing at it.
yeah.
But obviously they didn't want to. But I did find one or two when you got the newer ones who were struggling
Yeah.
and having struggles, and what were their struggles? That was, especially for ERA Group, building that pipeline was a big struggle. And some of the guys I talked to had been in the business 9 months and still didn't have a client, so that's no revenue. Um, and they were close on a couple, and that's the other thing is even though it's a great value proposition, the business is already making money. They don't. You're working on their time.
Mhm.
So if they're busy, oh yeah, no, I don't have time for you right now. I'll see you. I'll talk to you next month. I'll talk to you next month. You can't affect that. They're
Yeah.
supposed to get you the data, and it doesn't take them long, but it's still a to do.
Yeah.
That if they keep pushing it down the road, you can't. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. Um, and then just for people listening, right? So I usually recommend talking to like a lot, like double digits. And you can pull names and their phone numbers and their emails from the FDD. A lot of people don't realize that. And
yes,
the franchisors sometimes will tell you like, "Oh, we have a process," or they won't talk to you or whatever. Like, who cares? Go call them. They legally can't stop you from calling those franchisees. So yeah, definitely call a lot. And there's a list too of people who failed in the last year. So you can just call people on that list as well. Um,
and that was one piece that I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't necessarily do as well as at was going and looking for the people that had dropped out. In one
mhm,
of the franchises I did, and I eliminated that one pretty quick because it either that they weren't selecting the right people and just looking for the sale, or they weren't offering the right support. But yeah, how many people are? What's the turnover? And how many franchisees fail is
mhm.
a big factor, and that's an important thing to look at.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, and I'll look at that before I present to people, right? But people should
Yeah.
always double check it themselves, right? You shouldn't. Ultimately, this is your business, and you're the one who's responsible for making a good decision.
Yep, and that
Um,
FDD document that you mentioned is huge. I'd never heard of one not being in a franchise world. Now it's a standard, that franchise disclosure document. That's the regulation. That is a gold mine of information. So
mhm,
anybody looking at a franchise needs to go in there. And that's when I built the spreadsheets, I built them out of that because that's what they're disclosing. Put some factors in there of is it realistic or not, but they have to disclose the information.
yep, they have to disclose the information. You have to be careful about the item 19, even the item 7 nowadays. So the item 7 is the startup cost. The item 19 are the financial disclosures of current franchisees. And I talk people through this. Each one's different. There is no standard template for reporting the numbers. The numbers aren't audited. Um, so they'll say, "Oh, we didn't get numbers from a location," but really they just never asked them. So they didn't have to include the numbers because they knew it wasn't a good. So there's things that you have to just be careful of. There are great numbers in there, and then what you'll find is the best franchises have the most details because they have the least to hide, right? So
Right.
sometimes you can tell how good a franchise is just by what's not in the FTD. Um, so and yeah, so okay. Um, let's go back to the startup, right? So you've mentioned training a couple times. Could you tell us what is the training of ERA Group?
So for ERA Group, I was able to, once I paid the franchise fee, I was able to get into the systems and really start to learn. But then there's a 2-week training for new hires or new franchisees before you get to actually hang your shingle and start. Now you're not paying royalties yet either until you get trained, but 2 weeks over in the UK. And so they bring people in worldwide. There were 20 people in my class, uh,
Oh wow,
17 people in the class, plus the instructors. So from all over the world, there were 4 people in my class from the US. So we were able to bond, compare. We're all the same boat, same place. They had experts come in, experienced franchisees present real life cases. We were able to ask them questions as they explain the processes that we would be using. Um, very open and transparent. There was I hadn't received any surprises, so here I am 4 months, still don't have my first client, but they warned me that that was probably the norm. It's they said between 6 and 7 months is typically. They said some have already connections in their pipeline, and as there was one gentleman who, while he was at the class, was talking to somebody and going to hire him because he knew the CFO and they were friends, and so he had a signed contract before he finished training. But
that's
for the
awesome.
majority of people, they don't have that established pipeline. So you go in, you do the 2 weeks, then you come back and they set you up on a program with a mentor who can walk you through things that you meet with. You have a lot of go-to people that have training each week, different training and sales training. Depending on what your background weakness is, you can find the training you need. Plus, you can reach out to anyone in the franchise now, and most people are willing to share that and help. Oh, yeah, this is what I'd recommend. This is what I've seen that works. This works for me. This didn't work for me. Uh, but again, you're the business owner, so they can just suggest things. You've got to make it happen. You've got to come up with your plan and then do the right things that should lead to a client.
Yeah, yep, very cool. Well, it's nice that you have a um franchisee community that is supporting you, that's answering those questions. And like you said, that it's one of the big things. A lot of people like to learn about what's the right thing to do, but they don't want to go out and do it. So any business owner needs to be a person of action because at the end of the day, it's better to do something wrong, but do something, and you're going to stumble into success than just sit at home and try and figure out the perfect way to do it. Um,
Yep.
yeah,
And that's true for any franchise. The stuff, and like I mentioned, the 80/20 and first month was focused just learning ERA Group because it was new to me. But then the next 20%, that's a pretty easy metric because and like researching companies online doesn't count as connecting to people
yeah,
because until I go to you and ask and say, hey, would you like this analysis? I can really help your business out, or I talk to you about your pain points. If I'm not talking to you as a potential client, I'm never going to sell. Sitting in a basement office somewhere is not action. Uh,
yep, yep.
and
And sending emails, is an action. Like pick up the phone and call
it,
them. Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm not gonna name names here, but people close to me were like, "Oh, I sent him an email." I'm like, "You're not gonna sell anything." Yeah.
you're not going to see anything.
Um,
No.
anyway, okay. So, boo, boo, boo. What about marketing, right? Do you have access to like Gong or Apollo or these like massive databases? Like how are they getting you the names of these businesses? Like what does that look like?
We use Zoom Info quite a
Okay.
bit,
Yep.
and
Big one.
Zoom Info is able to very easily distill down. We even pay for some of the Zoom Info with intent. So if certain companies are looking to save money, there are indications that we can glean from that. And then if they're in
Oh,
our
wow.
area, we can reach out and again, it's not an email. You've got to now build that warm connection. I mean, oh, wow, Josh is looking to save money. Okay, well, now I've still got to get to know you. I've got to build some kind of relationship. I've got to talk to you on the phone because an email is you're gonna delete it. And the average
Yeah.
person is what, 8 times they need to hear something or see it before it starts to sink in. And we as franchisees, we're responsible for our own marketing and connections. So our sales pipeline and how we manage it, if we want to send letters, if we want to send emails, we want to send gift packages, but how or go to the company and knock on the door and say, hey, I'd like to meet with your CFO.
Yeah.
And, but as you said earlier, you've got to be on the phone. You've got to be in front of people. You've got to be out there talking to them. That's the
Yeah.
only way. They've got to get to know you because an email, they have no idea who you are. An email or
Yeah.
LinkedIn with one picture on your profile, they don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of us never change our profile pics, so it might be the one from 10 years ago and completely different. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I bet going in person probably helps a lot, right? Because even us, like, I own a kids dance franchise, but it's actually a B2B sale because the
yeah,
directors of the daycares and the preschools are the ones who say yes to us or not, right? It's not the kids. Like that's secondary. And if we're in a school, like we will get people to sign up, right? So it's almost an afterthought. And I have people where, because my wife hates calling, so I do all the cold calling, but like people who literally hang up on me, and then she'll walk in, maybe she'll bring brownies or whatever, and they'll be like the nicest people ever. And it's like, you hung up on my husband 2 days ago, like what's going on here? But like emails are ignored, phone calls are 50-50, but you walk in, they can't ignore you, right? And even if they'll be like, oh, well, I'm a little busy, but thanks for stopping by. Great, I'll come back tomorrow. I'll come back next week. And
exactly.
eventually they'll talk to you because, like, there's literally, we've had people that are like, don't come back. My wife's like, all right, have a great day. And she'll go back, a month later with more cookies. And they're like, fine, we'll talk to you. And we'll turn those into sales. So it's like a lot of these B2B things, you've got to be comfortable. The more personal it is, the better. Um, and I
It
know it's
is.
hard for you probably. Yeah.
It is, and you're trying to break through that level, and there are gatekeepers all the way around, because the
Yeah.
CFO's time is valuable, CEO, and I'm looking back to when I ran a business, I had blockers in place all over. I mean, now I also had people who if they like the idea and I trusted them already, that's the way to get to me. But I don't know who those people are at these other businesses. So building those bonds, yeah, getting in there. And you're right, our culture now, if somebody's face to face with you, they're not going to blow you off. But think how many emails, how many spam emails you open up your email box and the first thing you do, delete, 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 because they got through your filter. And your
Yeah.
personal emails, you don't even read them. And
Yep.
so, ERA Group, delete, 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 because they don't know who they are. Uh,
Yep.
and yeah,
Yep.
you have to learn
Okay.
to like rejection.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you know that, like, if you get rejected enough times, somebody's going to say yes to you eventually.
Exactly.
Um, all right. So let's talk kind of like long term, right? So what's the goal for the year? You're not far in, right? So let's say your 1 year goal, your 5 year goal, and then when's it? You said at 6 or 7 you'll either sell it or retire, but there has to be some benchmark, right? So like, what's the benchmark you're trying to reach that says, hey, I can retire?
So first year goal starting by the end of this year, I want to have at least 2 clients signed and in the process of doing it. Going forward into next year, I should have the pipeline established. So building those warm relationships, getting to know people in the right. And that's the other big piece of how to grow the business is the referrals. So once you help a client and save them money, they're more likely to call up their friend who's another CFO or CEO and say, hey, you need to have these guys doing an analysis for you. This guy, Jim, he came in, it only took a half hour to give him the data, an hour to review the results. So, 6 weeks later, and he saved us over $1 million. You really need to talk to him. Okay, that's the way. So that's how the business grows once you get established. So four clients a year is what I hope to attain after this year. So that's one a quarter. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you actually start getting there, all the rejection you talked about because you're going in and talking to people, it pretty much takes that long. And from what I'm seeing, the established people in the franchise are doing that. And they had told me coming in, if you get 4 clients a year, um, you're going to pretty much be in the top 10% of the franchisees.
Hmm.
So okay, that's good. I think I can do it. It's going to take some effort though. It's very different getting out
Yeah.
there and selling and getting to the right people.
So
So
let me ask you this real quick, right? Because I usually tell people that you should come in expecting to be a middle of the road franchisee for the first year or two, right? While you get your legs underneath you. And then it's going to come down to, your effort and how hard you work. And a lot of franchise owners get to a certain level and they're just fine and they just kind of stop off, right? Um, so what kind of what and be as, don't try and be humble here, right? What is making you think that like, hey, I know I can be a top 10% franchisee? What are those indicators to you?
um, well, so a lot of the people I talk to who are the 1 client a year, and now remember 1 client a year, and then you have that client for 3 years, and they kind of coast. Um, they're more into the retirement age. I'm not there yet. I mean, the real estate business, I still help my wife on the side, but I've got a lot of energy to put into this. And I think I know what people are looking for because I've been on the other side. So not everyone who comes into the franchise has had the opportunity to be on that CEO side where, hey, you're pushing these things away, you're looking for these things. So that I think, and the diligence and just setting that pipeline up. Plus, it, it's it is such a good value proposition. So I really believe once I can get in front of the right people and explain it, they're going to try it. I mean, it's why wouldn't you do the free analysis and find out that hey, we're doing a great job on cost, or we're bleeding cash. $1 million a year savings is huge. And if they have to
Hmm.
pay some of that money to have the experts come in, at least they've plugged that hole and put $500,000 to their bottom line. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a huge savings for them. So I really believe that once I get a few clients and can do that, then the referrals will come,
Hmm.
and to be able to network within that group.
Okay. So it sounds like a lot of franchisees are okay doing one a year, and you're willing to put in the work to get to the four. And that basically all it takes is the work. And then once you break in, as long as you're good about asking for referrals, which means you have to do a good job, right? So you will do a
Right.
good job. You're going to ask for referrals, and that'll get you to that plan. Okay. So I mean, it sounds like a solid plan, right?
It should. I also have the SDS work, so service delivery. If client acquisition, if I don't like it, it's not working for me. I've been networking with our service delivery experts in manufacturing, waste management, facility care, things that I've done in my past to save myself money. So I,
Hmm.
I know how to do it for other people. Um, but at this point, I'm gonna stick with. They recommend that you get at least 2 clients under your belt before you go into that expert range. So I would
Yeah.
get the clients and then work with experts within ERA Group to get that, just so I can learn the process and really also know both sides of the business,
Hmm. Hmm.
so that I can manage
Yeah.
that. Um,
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Um, All right. So what about advice? So people who are looking at franchising in general, we'll go to franchising in general before we talk about Air Group, right? But
okay.
someone who's where you were, let's call it 5, 6 months ago, they're thinking about franchising. They're thinking about how do I find the right one? Is it right for me? What's advice that you have for those kinds of people?
Um, find somebody who knows franchises and can help you weed through it. So not to plug you,
Yeah.
but I mean, I didn't know you at the time, but somebody like you who can walk them through. Before you even do that, you have to decide how much do you have to spend because a franchise isn't free. You've got to spend money. You've got to put money out before you're making money. So it's not, but it's also, you're going to have to put effort into it. So how much effort do you have? Now, some of the franchises, I've talked to people, and actually within ERA Group, they're still working daytime jobs and trying to do this on the side. I'm fortunate. I'm in a position where I could put 100% of my time into it. And that's also why I think I can knock it out of the park and get 4 clients a year, 1 a quarter, because I know people, my peers within ERA Group, that aren't doing that currently because they're doing other stuff. So if you're going to do a franchise, you have to know how much time are you going to commit to it. And there are models out there where you can just put your cash in and then you can hire your manager to run it for you. You get smaller returns, but there are
Yes,
franchises with those type of
there's
models.
there's very few. I just want to put that out there, right? So if you're getting told, oh, there's tons of semi-passive, it's not true, right? And franchises will sell them knowing that you've put in so much money that you're going to quit your job when your manager fails. Um, and it sucks, right? But um, yeah, like when I was selling franchises, I'm talking to these other salespeople. I'm like, that doesn't sound very semi-passive. They're like, oh, well, they'll figure it out, and it's like, okay, got it, but it's not. So there's literally, I've gone through hundreds of franchises, and I found maybe 6 that I would personally try and do while I kept a job, right? And honestly, like, people think it's safer to keep their job. It's not, right? It's like, how are you going to try and do 2 things at one time? It's actually way safer if you have a good franchise model. Like, let's put that out first, right? You pick a good franchise, it's way safer just to go all in, right? Than to hope this other guy that you're hiring off of Indeed is gonna run your business from nothing to a big business. Um, right? So unless that, yeah, there's ways to mitigate that. It costs way more money to do so. Usually costs you some equity. And it's not for somebody who's never run a business before, for sure. Um, yeah, sorry, I just get like super passionate about this because it's like I've seen so many people lose their money or they've lost their job and now they're in this place where they're like about to go bankrupt. And it's like, dude, you should have left your job 7 months ago, 8 months ago when this thing started, not now when you've run out of money. Um, so yeah, like you are way more likely to succeed to get to that 4 clients a month, get to whatever the number is you want to get to in your franchise if you just do it full time. It's scary. But honestly, if you're not willing to make that leap, um, then you need to be willing to put in like 500,000 plus to get a franchise that can support this model reliably. Yeah.
So
Sorry,
yeah,
I had to
exactly.
interrupt there.
No, because you're right. You're investing. So and I didn't want to put a 500,000, and I did. There was no
Yeah.
way. I had a much lower number in mind, and that there the FDD will explain what your typical costs are going to be, but you've got to go out there and do the work. And so a lot of the franchises, and talking to some of the franchisees, you could tell the ones who put the work in themselves and had built their franchise. And I did talk to 1 or 2 of them who, they were doing part-time and they quickly realized it didn't work. That, the
Yeah.
because you always find the excuse of going, well, I'll just work at my old job because at least it's paying the bills. No, you
Yep.
need to put your efforts into the new one. And if that's not your sole focus, I did talk to 1 or 2 very successful people who scaled their franchises and they put a year in, and just ran everything, learned it from the ground. And then they were able to easily hire somebody to manage it, or more easily, because they knew all the ins and outs and what the person needed to
Yep.
do. But
Yep.
you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And so, yeah, definitely that's a key thing to consider.
Cool.
So
Cool.
yeah, you need to know what time you're going to put into it, how much money, what your pain you're willing to deal with, and also that it's aligned to what your values are and what you want to do. So I mean, if you hate a certain task or something, and that's all you're going to be doing in this franchise, you might want to look for a different franchise. I mean, it's
Yep.
just because you're going to be doing it every day,
Yep.
and you've got to believe in whatever you're doing. So
Good point. Yeah, you don't have to love it, right? It hasn't to be your passion, but it can't be something that you're gonna wake up every morning and dread because that attitude will seep into your employees, your customers are going to notice. It's just not going to be good, and you're not going to have a good time. So, okay, great. I appreciate that. And then last thing, you're a veteran, right? You went to the best service academy, the Naval Academy. Uh, so what? I mean, or do you think that there's any reasons why veterans specifically should look at business, or is this truly there's not a huge differentiator there?
I think there is a huge differentiator. And so I mentioned workforce development earlier. And one of the things I've noticed is veterans coming out don't understand what skills and things they bring to the workforce, what benefits. So it doesn't matter, academy, army, recruited, went through sergeant major. Anybody in any of the armed services has basic skills. They have basic leadership. They know how to wake up and show up on time. I mean, there are things out there. So, and especially in setting up your own business, again, the driver of knowing what your mission is, what you're heading toward, and that we're trained in the military, in the Navy, in the Army, Marines, whatever. You're trained to, this is the objective. What do I need to do to get there? And when something doesn't go your way, you don't throw up your hands and go, because if you're in the field, who are you going to hand it off to?
Yeah.
You've got to achieve your goal. You're in a ship in the middle of the ocean, and all of a sudden it starts leaking or the engine doesn't work. You've got to figure it out. No one's coming to get you.
Yep.
You're in the middle of the jungle with your squad. You've got to figure it out. And so I think service veterans often don't realize how much they really do know. That's above and beyond. And it's not about shooting people. It's about getting the job done. And employers don't realize the benefit of hiring veterans. That there's a huge benefit there. And people think, oh, their skills won't translate. They won't. Uh, we're trained veterans, military people are trained to go in, assess the situation, learn it, and succeed. So it doesn't matter buying a franchise, just being an employee, they're going to figure it out really quick and do it well.
Yeah. I think it almost makes them more fit for business than a job in a lot of situations because I've had employers who just are like, just do it. And I'm like, I don't want it. Like, why? You know, there's no end state here, right? Every leader in the military is taught that you have to give an end state to the task. So people know that if they figure out a better way to do it, as long as they get to the right end state, they'll do it the other way. And there's always a why behind it. And so I think when people have that grit and that determination, and they just have like an end state that they need to get to, a lot of people don't appreciate that. They have the way that, oh, this is the way that our business does it. You have to do it this way, even if it doesn't make sense. And I don't know. I'm obviously biased, right? But yeah. Okay. Very cool. Well, Jim, this was a really good conversation. I think I learned a lot about ERA Group. Learned a lot about you. So just to sign off, do you have any last kind of parting thoughts for listeners who are thinking about franchising?
I Yeah, I'd highly recommend that if you're considering a business and starting something, if you don't have already a desire that you're going to build a widget or whatever, start a service company, and you're going to do it and just do it from the ground up, that's still a good way to do it. But if you're on the fence, look at franchises. So you've already got the established pathway to success. They've already done that. They can show you. They've already got the hurdles. They have support network. And for somebody coming out of the military, so we're talking about veterans, they have a game plan in place. So they're going to train you. They're going to give you your orders, and your objective is to get clients or to grow this business. So I think it's particularly well suited for veterans and people with that type of experience.
Yep, for sure. Awesome. Well, Jim, thank you very much. For those who don't know, right, I'm Josh Emerson, franchise broker, Tracer Franchising. We work with people who want to find great franchises. I'll work with you to find what your goals are, find franchises that match that I've vetted personally to make sure that they meet my minimum standards. Then I'll work you through the process, usually 2 to 3 months, to really research the franchise and make sure it can get you to where you want to be. It has the support necessary for you to be successful. and it has a cadre of other franchisees who can assist you and help you through that journey. So please reach out. You go to tracerfranchising.com. There's a calendar right there on the homepage. Just scroll down. You can schedule time with me. Or you can email me, josh@tracerfranchising.com, and happy to answer any questions you have. Alrighty. Thanks, Jim. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate you.